Welcome to the Legal Circus Podcast. Great new special episode. Did not plan on this. I was getting ready to do the next podcast, which is on the addiction trial with Mark Lanier going on in California. And Aaron Kerr from Intoxalock walks in, and I'm like, Aaron, all right, stop. Before we start that one, let's do one on the interlock device on a car. So I'm a DUI defense lawyer. And I handle a ton of DUIs, try a ton of DUIs, and I'm always attacking the breath test machine. In Florida, if you blow over 0.15, you're going to have to put an interlock device on your car. We call it IID, Ignition Interlock. And if you have prior DUIs, you're going to have an Ignition Interlock device. If you want to do the rider program, you're going to have an Ignition Interlock device. So that's why we're going to go through it with Aaron and explain everything. And so why don't you introduce yourself and Intoxalock to everybody?
Yes. Thank you, sir. Glad to be here. And again, very impromptu. I walked in to say
we did
hi.
not plan it.
Not planned at all. He walked on the spot.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. He walked in the door and goes, hey, I got some new information, new pamphlets for you. Did you bring us coupons too for people?
Yes, I sure do.
Okay.
Yes. And thank you again for letting me, join you today. And, with some compliance changes in the state of Florida, nothing too drastic, but, I always like to get out and see my partner attorneys and just, say, hey, here's some new information.
So what compliance changes are there?
Just mainly with the reduced breath is kind of one that the documentation that's required from the pulmonologists for people who have, problems with, blowing, because the pattern is a 3-second blow, 3-second inhale, and a 3-second blow again.
Okay, so why don't you
tricky.
Explain that to everybody, what exactly that is?
So that is the blow pattern to be able to get the device to pass or fail, hopefully not, but because a lot of times the service centers aren't as, it's not that they're equipped, but they don't train properly a lot of times, so we want to make sure that the client knows the blow pattern, because some of the other devices, our competitors, other vendors, it's just a straight blow until it beeps or vibrates. This blow pattern for the Intoxalock device, it really gets a deep breath. So it wants 3-second exhale, a 3-second inhale, and a 3-second exhale again before it gets that reading. So that's where we want to make sure everybody knows that blow pattern.
Okay, I got the cheap one, the little handy dandy thing. This is not what you're using. This is not
right
even close to scientifically and how valid yours is. So what am I doing now to give a valid sample? So I'm blowing in.
1, 2, 3. Inhale. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3.
And that is to start the car.
That picks the reading. Yes.
So I get in my car and I have to do that before it starts. If I'm required to have the IID.
Correct. They don't touch anything in the vehicle except the button on that device, very first thing, and that activates the vehicle.
But I could have my kid come in and blow for me, right?
You could. But the camera that's mounted to the dash, based on Florida state compliance, is going to take an image immediately. As soon as that button is pressed, it activates the camera, takes a picture. It's not video. It's only a camera, only a picture, and it will compare that to the driver's license image.
So someone who, you're driving to work, so you get up in the morning, take your shower, take some mouthwash, swish it around, or you eat a donut, and then you get in your car, start it up, and you use the Intoxalock. Can you get a false positive?
False positive, yes. Now, the rate of dissipation in that reading is probably only about 10 to 15 minutes. So we always tell people, don't eat anything, anything that it could set it off as a false positive. If you do, wait about 15 minutes, because then it's going to dissipate quick enough.
So you're talking about a spike, and then it's going to come flatline down. What's the limit, 0.02?
0.02.
So let's say somebody has a donut. Can a donut do it?
A donut could, probably not immediately, because it hasn't had time to ferment basically that yeast. So if they eat one and get in the car, it's probably going to pass. Now, when they have to retest after a certain amount of time, because the device will automatically make them retest between 15 and 45 minutes of starting the vehicle.
That's what I was going to ask. And
Yes. Yeah, so it could give them a false positive at that point. But if they don't have to retest for it, like probably at least 15 minutes, they should be okay. It should be a 0.
So would you turn off the car then?
It won't start.
It won't start at all.
If they get a false positive and it's high enough where it won't let the vehicle start, based on what that level of percentage is, then they're not going to go anywhere. And it's not a lockout. It's just they're going to have to retest.
So some are set for 0 and some are set for 0.02 on the Intoxalock?
In the initial calibration, when the account is set up, and if it's in the document set by probation courts, where they have to be at a 0, no tolerance, then it's calibrated that way up front.
That would be, though, a special condition for somebody.
Special condition, yeah.
The standard's 0.02?
0.02, yeah.
Okay.
Anything above, it's locked out, or they're going to have to retest after a certain amount of time. Under that, it'll start, but it's going to show up on their report.
Okay. So certain counties, Polk County does not have a diversion program, in quotes, because these diversion programs, Orange County has one, I think, that will result in the charge being totally dismissed, a DUI charge.
Yes.
Hillsborough has RIDER, RIDR. Pinellas Pasco has DROP, DROP. And in order to do the programs, depending on your DUI, whether it's a drug DUI or alcohol DUI, and we're dealing with alcohol, what are the requirements, or when does Intoxalock get involved for someone to qualify for one of those programs?
Yeah, great question. So once the Florida DMV or the FLHSMV is involved and the requirement is set by them or probation, what the client does is they get all of their documentation together and sends it in to Intoxalock and calls Intoxalock. So we have a special number, especially for Florida, which is great. They call in. They connect with our service center, or not the service center, inside sales. They bring the documentation in required. They have to have their VIN number, driver's license number, and then the paperwork for the court order or probation. Once that's in, they will schedule their service install. The nice thing that Intoxalock has done is they've set up a franchise model for the service center installers. So that is an automotive repair shop, tent shop,
Collision shops doing them? Or
if they're certified, I haven't seen any collision repair locations that are doing installs like this. Mainly auto repair, oil change places and tire rotations. But once that gets scheduled, they then go to the location, pay for their install, everything's good to go, and then they just have a monthly fee and monthly calibration. Every 30 days, that device has to be recalibrated because the fuel cell that's inside of the handheld device itself has to be, it's basically kind of like a cleaning process.
So the other thing people are worried about is the Intoxalock, the Ignition Interlock Device, going to hurt my car, harm my car, break my car? So what is it connected to that makes it stop the vehicle or not start?
Basically, the module is connected to the ignition switch module on the computer of the vehicle. Depending on the vehicle, the newer ones did have an attorney that reached out about a 2025 Mercedes that the service center said they couldn't install on, but it was that particular service center that didn't have any experience with that vehicle. So we found one that did and had them go to the other location. Not a problem. So typically, if there is any issues electronically with the vehicle, it could have been from the service center not being as as savvy to that vehicle. Yeah.
I remember, is this still a problem? Teslas were a problem initially, correct?
Initially, yes.
But that's been fixed?
Been resolved, yep. We have a great, back-end team that handles, that connects with all the service centers and the technology aspect of it. So they've done really well. Teslas are not a problem anymore. And so, yeah, everything is great there.
Now, the other thing we talked about at some, the number one thing always everybody asks, how much does it cost? Because you have to pay an installation fee, correct?
Correct.
The monthly fee.
Correct.
And you have to pay a fee to get it
recalibrated. Oh, that's the monthly fee. Yeah.
Okay.
The calibration.
But then to remove it, you have to pay.
And to remove it, yes.
So you're paying 3 fees.
Mm-hmm.
Installation, monthly, removal.
Yes.
Now, I assume it's changing over time and prices go up. What's ballpark now on those three fees?
So installation average, depending on the vehicle model and year, is about $250 to $350.
That much?
That's that much.
Wow.
Now, some of the older vehicles, they can be as low as like $100, $150.
And then the monthly calibration and monitoring fee, I always told people $75. Am I right, wrong?
The calibration is typically about $25 monthly, and then the rental fee for the unit now is about $110 total.
It gets in the computer system now. They pled guilty to DUI on an elevated blow. What are the steps? Because this is different because you got to put the Intoxalock. So how is that going to work at the DMV?
So with the DMV, it's once the court is ordered and the time that, or let's say the date that they have to have the Ignition Interlock device installed and, shown that it's recorded, installed, the service center has to submit that information of install to Intoxalock, and then Intoxalock will send that report also into the DMV.
So they'll go to the DMV, apply for a hardship license,
Yes.
get tentative approval.
Mm-hmm.
Then they come to the service center.
Yes.
And then the service center they put it on.
Yes.
And then what do they send you?
So what they'll do is once the device is installed and the client starts the vehicle the initial time, that basically goes from pending to active. So on the back end in the system on the account file, it'll up until the time that it's required by the DMV to have it installed and be active, it just shows as pending. Like they're in the system. Once it's active, and that's what activates it, is the very first time they start the vehicle with their blow pattern.
One of the other things that we run into is someone pleads out, they're put on probation, and one of the conditions was, we'll say, the Ignition Interlock Device, the Intoxalock. What happens if you get, for someone on probation, an alert that they're over .02? What does Intoxalock do? Do you send it to the probation office right away?
Yes. So because the log reporter is what the probation reporting is called, and the attorney reporting is called DUI dash. So DUI dash is, you can log into it anytime, see all of the, pass, fails, anything on that client report. So with log reporter, back end at our at corporate, basically our inside sales and our compliance liaisons, if I'm saying that right. They will send that report into the DMV or probation, and then they take it from there.
And then how long somebody has to have the device depends on program, the facts of your DUI case, what you blew.
Right.
And so if it's rider, the DMV does not get involved. If it's one of these diversion programs, DMV is not involved in putting the device on the vehicle.
Correct.
And so you're just doing that on your own. You come to the service center, contact you guys, go to the service center, get it put on, and then in 6 months you're getting it off,
Yes.
or whatever it is for the program.
Mm-hmm.
And then with, like we said, people with permanent revocations, they're keeping that on there forever.
Yes.
That's 5 years you got to wait.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be you could not even get a hardship license, and then they changed it and switched it, and then it was for a little bit they did, I think, 1 year to clear backlog, and now it's 5 years you got to wait. And what that means is no driving within 5 years and no drinking within 5 years to get approved for it. And then everything else with the permanent revocation is the same as any other DUI? As far as requirements, the .02, or is it zero tolerance on those?
Those can be set at zero tolerance based on the county and probation, from my understanding.
If someone has a permanent revocation, though, are they at zero or are they at .02? Do you know?
They should be at zero.
I figured.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, and common sense kind of tells you
Right.
that that's where it's going to be. Permanent's when you have 4 DUIs, and that's how you end up in that situation.
Yeah.
So what else did we not talk about that we need to know?
The biggest thing with, your clients and them getting the best discount if they are required to have the device is, you are one of my great partners for the state. And then that way they're going to get those additional benefits. So there are client referral benefits coming from you, their attorney, which is great. So, like I said, they're going to get $100 off their install. They're going to get some additional benefits like lockout waived, possibly a month waived of those fees. And so, we really want to help people because, we know that it's a very costly situation for them. And but we want people to be safe and, not out there drinking and driving.
Yeah, that's why DUIs are expensive. You got fines, you got potential ignition interlock device, you got to do community service, you got to pay for a lawyer. It's going to problems with your job. The best thing to do is designated driver, ride share, cab, Lyft, Uber, especially because they've been making the penalties worse. The DUI manslaughter penalties went up. We've got super speeder laws, anything vehicular related. When people call me on and go, it's a different world now. It changed, That's one of the problems too. This is what I'm seeing that you might not know is October 1st, it's now a crime to refuse the breath test. It's second-degree misdemeanor, maximum 60 days in jail. I'm getting a lot more people taking the breath test and not refusing now.
Sure.
Because the officer's required to tell them if you do not take the breath test, it's an additional crime. And everyone goes, I don't want to get in more trouble.
Right.
And so I'm going to assume your numbers are going to go up on that.
Yeah. The best thing is, just to, they got to be honest with themselves and know that, they took that risk and they made the choice. And so.
Yeah, it's just not worth it, the drinking and driving.
At all.
If anybody has any questions, they can put them in comments and then we can answer them for you. And if I don't know the answer, I can get with Aaron and then we'll get it up there.
And I'll find it. If I don't know it, I will find it for sure.
Fantastic.
All right.
I appreciate it. Man, we lucked out today. So thanks for coming and being part of the Legal Circus.
Yes, thank you, sir. It's great.